So you've just downloaded the Inner Creator preset pack. Thank you for being here. We're not going to go like full hectic into editing mode. I'm just going to give you a brief outline on what preset is going to work well with a specific photo. If you have any feedback whatsoever on this preset pack, just send me an email, liam@seventhera.co. It can be anything. If you think the presets are shit, let me know. If you're loving them, let me know as well, because at the end of the day, I just want to make the best preset pack for you, and I'm not just going to sell you some random product and then like go see you later. Like, I actually want to make it the best product for you. So send me an email, liam@seventhera.co, and I'll reply to them all. So yeah, just want to make sure you're getting a good product. So I just wanted to cover that before we start. But now let's get into the preset tutorials. Blade Runner Night Vibes. So this is heavily inspired by the movie Blade Runner. It just gives this Neo-Tokyo futuristic vibe. And if we go over to the temperature and tint, if it's a bit green for you, this preset, just simply adjust your temperature to get more of a blue look. And if you want it to be a bit more hazy, you can just do that through the dehaze here. Before, after, before, after. Next up we have Balloon. So if I apply this preset, it's a bit more of a subtle one. It still gives a decent amount of change, but I like this image here because we've got the nice reflections of the tail lights and they remain consistent when you use this preset. So the color doesn't change too much. It just gives a nice sort of dark blue tone to your image. I'd recommend using this on night photos as well, but like I said, just get creative with all these presets, because if I run my mouse through them, you can see like they all give a unique look to the image. Some work well with some images, but you know, there's plenty to choose from. Next up we have Cloudy Daydream. So this is for when you're taking photos during the day and it's just a cloudy day, there's not much going on in terms of lighting. And this photo here, you know, it's raining in Tokyo, so you're just gonna get bangers regardless. So if we chuck this preset on, it gives it a nice subtle blue tint to the image. So there's the before, there's the after. And I'd recommend using this one on cloudy day photos. That's when it works the best. Now, changing gears a bit, this preset is a very strong preset. It gives it a specific look, which is the intention. So here's the before. If we chuck the preset on, you know, maybe we can put the exposure down a bit, maybe a bit of the shadows down as well, bring the highlights up. It's a very contrasty vibe, and it, as you can see in this image here, we got the power lines just fading off in the distance. I've added some grain as well to this preset, so this is a very cinematic preset, and I'd use it on images that you want to give this dark, moody feel to. Now, next preset here, Daytime Jab. As you can see, it gives a very solid orange vibe to your images. So here's the before, here's the after, and I preferably like to either expose for the highlights or the shadows. I know some photographers like to do this sort of, you know, expose for everything look, but I think that just looks ugly in my opinion. So I'm just gonna keep it exposed for the highlights, even drop the exposure down a bit, and yeah. Before, after. I use this Daytime Jab preset mostly for street photography. Same with the next preset here, which is Daytime Jab Right Hook. So if I reset the image, you know, actually I'll click on zeroed. I've got this preset called zeroed, which just resets all the sliders, but it keeps the crop the same. So I've included that in the pack as well. Where is it? Daytime Jab Right Hook. So if we put the exposure up here, this is also another street photography preset. So I mainly use this when I'm doing street photography during the day. That's when I find it works the best. So you can add a bit more contrast. And if you want to adjust sort of the blueness here in the highlights, you can do that through the global color grading slider. So you can add more or you can add less, depending on what you want. Next up, we have Dystopia. So this is, yeah, for blowing out the highlights. I've got that noted here because it's a very specific preset. It's not one that's going to work with every single image, but it will work if you're wanting to have an image like this where you're going to be blowing out the highlights. So there's the before, there's the after. Yeah, this is one of my favorite shots I've taken recently as well. Just a cool shot. It shows the scale of the buildings here. So if you have a photo where, yeah, there's a highlight and you want to blow that out, I would recommend using this preset here. Next preset is Flat Night. So this is a preset, like for example, you can see the highlights here are quite flat and the shadows and the black parts of the image, they're not really too dark. So you can adjust it like a little bit if you want, but the kind of vibe for this preset is just to give you that flat sort of dull look to your images. And you know, the oranges here are a bit too strong, so we can just bring them down here. I tend to use it when I want everything to be blended in together, instead of having like, you know, all the city lights are like super blown out and then you have the shadows which you can barely see. So this sort of blends everything together and brings everything down a bit. Now, next preset is called Green Night, and we've got Green Night WB white balance vibes, and it's good for images that have lots of lights like this one here. So the greenness of the image, if you want to take that down a bit, that's just using this slider here. If you want a bit more of a blue look, you can do that. But I prefer this green vibe, so you can adjust the exposure up or down. I like to sort of expose for the highlights a bit more, so keep it around here. And that gives a nice look to the blacks of your image as well. So there's a before and there's the after. So next up we have light snow. So this is a simpler preset. It's a bit more of a universal one, and as you can see, it just gives a light sort of preset effect to your images. It's nothing too hectic, but if you ever do snow photography or like any sort of photography like that, this preset's going to work best for those sort of images. Next up, we have Night Aqua Portraits. So this preset gives a very dark, grungy vibe to your portraits. So if we go the before and the after, you can see there's a lot of aqua tones going on here, but we also can retain the skin tones. Now, as you can see, the before and the after, there's a lot of grain. So if you want to reduce that a bit, you can either bring the size of the grain down or just bring the amount down. That's Night Aqua Portraits. Night Cobalt. This is a night sort of blue preset once again, and it's a very simple one. It's not too hectic. So I find it's not always good to over edit your presets. I know in my first couple of preset packs, like literally every preset was just so over edited. But this one here is a bit more of a simpler one, which can help keep the main message of this story present. Because if you over edit the photo, it kind of just takes away from the photo sometimes. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So here's the before, here's the after, and it just gives a nice blue tone to the image. Next up, we have this portrait of my friend Honomi. This is here in Japan, and this preset is, it's great for night portraits, especially when you're in an urban environment. But one thing to make sure, and this is just a general portrait tip, is you need to have lighting on the face. Like, as you can see here, there's enough light on Honomi's face for it to be lit up and for there to be enough data for us to edit. If it's just purely in the shadow, you're not really going to be able to get those nice skin tones. So if I go onto the preset here, as you can see, it's quite strong, so we can just bring it down a little bit, and then I'm going to put the highlights down a bit, bring the exposure up, and we'll just play around with the clarity a bit. And then I want to get a bit more details out of the eyes here, so we can just bring the shadows up, and there you go. There's the before, there's the after. So if we add the night tone preset here, we've got a lot of aquas in the highlights, but we've also got some nice grain just running through here, which I really think ties the whole image together. So we have the before and we have the after, and I find this just works generally well on a lot of night images, so pretty universal for your night photography. Next up, we have Sharp Black and White. So pretty self-explanatory. It's just a black and white preset, and you can just play around with your contrast and exposure. And also, if you want to go down to your grain and add more or less, you can do that depending on what you like. I like to add a bit more grain usually in my black and white images. Just also once again helps tie everything together. Now, next preset here is Simple Street. It's a simple street photography preset. It's in the name. So it's just going to add a little bit of a boost to your photo. So here's the before, here's the after. But as you can see, so many of these presets just work well on this image. So get creative with them. But that's Simple Street. Just a simple street preset. Next preset here, we have Snow Day Dark Dystopia. So if we click on that, as you can see, we got a nice aqua tone that runs throughout the image. And I'm probably going to bring the exposure up a little bit for this one. Highlights down, bit of shadows up to get a bit more of that detail. There's the before and there's the after. So I'd recommend using this on your daytime images. Now, Soft Noodle. The name of this preset came from when I was eating a bowl of ramen, and I'm like, I like ramen so much that I want to name a preset after it. So that's why it's called Soft Noodle. If we chuck it on here, you can see it gives a nice soft look, which is used through bringing the clarity all the way down. Not all the way, but just like, -50, somewhere around there. Same with the dehaze. So this photo was taken at Mount Fuji, and such a cool spot for photography. So if you ever get a chance to get out to Japan, definitely come to this street here. The last preset of this preset pack is the Tokyo Night film emulation. So it just kind of gives this this film look. If you've ever shot on film at night, you often get either the highlights or the shadows exposed. Like, it's very contrasty, and obviously we have a lot of grain. So I've made the grain size bigger specifically for this preset. And get creative with it, with all your night photos. So here's the before, here's the after, and depending on what hue you want of the oranges, you can just change that here. If you want a bit more of a red look, you can go with that. And if you want to bring the exposure up a little bit more, just to get a bit more detail, you can do something like that. But that's Tokyo Night film emulation, and that's all the presets from this pack. We've got one more, which is called Zeroed. And this just this helps for like when you want to show the before and after of the image. But let's say you've cropped your image. We'll just reset it. Let's say you've cropped your image. You do your preset on it, and you just want to show the before and after of this image. But if you click reset, it obviously changes the crop. So I've created the zeroed preset, so you can export this image here. So you can export the edited image and then just click on zeroed and export this image as well. And when you tap before and after, like on an Instagram story or something, it's going to keep that same crop. That is all from this preset pack, and I hope you learned something through these tutorials. If you are going to end up using these presets and posting it to Instagram, tag me in the photos, because I'd love to see how you use them and how you get creative with them. If there's anything you want me to add to this preset pack, or if there's any feedback that you have, just send me an email, liam@seventhera.co, and I'll get back to you. Because I always want to be improving these presets and whatever product I sell. So that's all from me. Thanks for buying the presets, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you create.